Now, we're going to show you some pieces of the original research that we conducted, and there's a couple of things you need to understand. I'm going to show you momentarily some insights that are driven by a unique research methodology. But let's begin with some important points. We believe that millennials are selfish, self-centered people. They only care about themselves. What did we discover? The question was, what other people think of me is very important to me, and the answer was, agree, you betcha, more than half. Very strongly agree, another 15%, so more than 2/3 of millennials are very concerned about what other people think of them. And what's even funny, if you look at the bottom, strongly agree, females, very strong, very important, but altogether 2/3, okay? Next issue, how I look and dress is very important to me. How I look and dress. So the way they feel about themselves is incredibly important, but it means that they're looking at other people see them. And most important, at the bottom, you'll notice that men, male millennials, are even more concerned, more intensely concerned, about how they look and dress than females. Interesting, eh? All right, let's do one more. Custom. We keep talking about customizing, this is the great age of customization. How do millennials define customization? Give me the options from which I can choose, which is one option, but the stronger option is let me make it, design it in the first place. So let me design it in the first place. All right, the next pieces of data are pretty quick we're going to go through, and they are based on a new metric, an intensity metric. Rather than asking how many people, what we really want to know is how intensely the answers were felt. So we created a 21-point scale, where a +10 was the most intensely felt, positive, and a -10 was the most intensely felt, negative. So it's a metric of intensity, a new way of understanding what people value, right? So let's look at some of these interesting metrics. This is kind of an example of how it looks. So you can see a +10 on the top, and there are some negative numbers down at the bottom. If we look at the question, when I shop for ... I feel excited and delighted, that's a +10, or miserable, that's a -10. What do we find? What makes millennials most excited and delighted? Number one, survey says, 8.2, travel. Not stuff, travel. Okay? Number two, dining out. And we will connect that in a moment to why that's important. Those are the two most delightful things that millennials spend their money on. Stuff comes after that. Think 5,000 bucks. How the heck do you do all this for 5,000 bucks? JP will later explain. What I don't like is I don't like video games that much. They don't really excite me that much, believe it or not. Computer games don't really excite me that much. Those are in the below. Those are in the below. This is intensity. This is not behavior. This is not how many people do it. This is the intensity. That's what makes this interesting information. And school books is a -2, just so you know. So if any of you sell school books, sorry. All right, let's look at some other ideas. I used the word before, micro-value systems. What we're going to look at are some millennial micro-value systems. So for example, the things that matter most in my life. And you kind of see that's most important, and it kind of comes down as it goes around to least important. Here's the interesting highlight. What's most important in my life? Connecting with my friends in person. Cyber is nice, but cyber is basically a way of setting up the in-person contact. That's what we've learned. What's not that important? Well, let's see. If we go down the list, you can see that email is pretty important, cell phone is important, text messaging is important, connecting with my friends through technology. All of those have to do with connecting with my friends. What is at least important in that group is Facebook. And now here's the bad news. For those of you about to embark on enormous Twittering campaigns, please note, Twitter is a -4.4. A -4.4. You may want to rethink before you launch into a great Twitter campaign. And the reason for that is that millennials believe that we, have basically corrupted Twitter. You've made it a corporate marketing tool. It's not theirs. Facebook is, and Facebook is coming back. But be careful of over-engaging in their space, because you'll take them off once again. All right, let's look at some more. How about when it comes to shopping, my limits are, here's number one, 6.2 right here at the top. I have learned to save on some things I buy so that I have money to buy the things that really matter most. Strategic acquisition. What's at the bottom range? Well, I buy whatever I want, whenever I want, all the time, which is the common assumption about our friends, the millennials. That's a minus 3.3. So the opposite of the scale. I will save money on everything else to be able to go out and eat with my friends is a 4.0. Interesting things. Eating is big. So if you can tie whatever you sell to food, you got it made. All right, what about I find information from the following to be the most influential? What's the single most important informational source? From people who have experience directly in the subject. People who have actually done something. I am delighted to see that 5.3 is from my parents. I have a couple of millennials. I'm glad to know they're listening and paying attention. But what's even more intriguing is right below my parents at 3.7 is signs in the store when I am shopping. The point of sale, my friends, matters a great deal to millennials. It's an opportunity to get some new information. It's an opportunity to find out something you didn't know before you got there. It's extremely important and information. What doesn't matter very much, as you can see here, is advertising on the internet, 0.6. 0.6. Text messaging, advertising on radio, way down. The one thing that's very interesting, and here on the right side of the scale, you can see 2.8, stories in magazines. Stories, not advertisements. Stories in magazines. And why does that matter? Because a magazine is usually something you select for yourself. It matters to you. So stories in magazines are the equivalent of from people who have direct experience on the subject. You want to sell something to millennials, that's where you need to start. Okay? What about this one? The aspects of shopping that turn me on or off are 7.4, getting low prices. Followed immediately by buying things that will last a long time. Does that sound consistent with impulse shoppers? Does that make sense to you? That people who are buying things just a spur of the moment would even consider that things last a long time? Down in the negatives is getting information about sales through my cell phone, minus 3.9. Don't waste the bandwidth. Don't bother. It's not going to do you much good. And being able to buy things over the phone, not for millennials. One of the recurring themes is that you get information electronically, but you don't make the decision until you touch and feel. As a matter of fact, it worked the other way. That is to say, if I first got a lot of information by touch and feel and understanding, I would then feel comfortable actually buying online. But until I touch and feel. So while we seem to be living in this cyber world, it isn't quite there yet. Okay, and the last one is, when it comes to shopping, here is what millennials prefer. Number one, I prefer to be left alone until I need some help. So I want to be alone, but I want to have that help screen, that physical help screen, those people in the store that can be available when I need them at the moment I need them. Okay? I gather and shop mostly in person, 4.0. That's what, again, to dispel the notion, these are not people who rely on cyber shopping at all. It's part of the continuum, and in-store is still extremely important. Aren't you glad? Came all the way to Las Vegas to find out you're still in the game big time. You matter more. All right, so having said all of these things, just one quick observation is millennials are still pretty young. A lot of them are still in college. Some are beginning to find their way into the real world. As they go through additional life stages, there will be some changes. Here's a couple of examples. The blue line is college millennials. The orange line is post-college millennials. And if you look down at the bottom right-hand corner, 7.3, whenever I consider buying or doing something, I love to figure out how to get the best deal. 7.3 for college, only 5.6 for post-college. So things will change. Things will change. Things will go back to new places and